and today will be. I can't keep messing up the intro every time. Like at this point, it's getting childish. Hi guys, my name is Baki Sikhale, and an official. Nope. Again. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Baki Sikhale, and today we'll be visiting the Hannah Cornelius case. On the 12th of February 1996, Hannah was born to parents Anna and Willem Cornelius. Hannah's father was a well-known magistrate and Hannah's mother was an attorney in the Western Cape. So she was born from a very affluent family, a very wealthy family, and Hannah's brother unfortunately was diagnosed with autism. Now Hannah was described as very humble and very modest. On her 16th birthday, her request was that they, make party packs to give out to children in informal settlements, and thereafter this basically became a tradition for every birthday that she had thereafter, that they give back to the community. Now in 2016, Hannah was starting at Stellenbosch University, and because her parents, the mom was an attorney and the dad was a magistrate, they kind of expected that she would go also into that field, the law field. However, she decided to go into humanities because she felt that she wanted to give back to communities, and also she had dreams to study in France. Now, just before Hannah went to university, she was to be gifted with a car, and so she decided that she would rather have her grandmother's VW City Golf. And I mean, Hannah could have had any car that she wanted, but she felt that she would rather have her grandmother's City Golf, as the grandmother had had it for years, and that it had, so much sentimental value to it. And so then her grandmother then gifted her with the City Golf, and she was on her way off to university. Now, on Friday, the 26th of May, 2017, when Hannah was in second year, varsity life, she had decided to go out with her friends on a Friday evening after having had a very hectic week at school. And so her and her friends went out and they were just partying and having a good time. And around 2 a.m. in the morning, they decided to go home. Now, Hannah had a friend by the name of Cheslin Marsh, who she decided to escort home on that day after the party. Now, Cheslin was known, to be that boy that has a skateboard, and he basically uses it to get around campus, to get around, the block where it is that they stayed, or to go wherever it is that they had decided to go. But since it was like the AMs, Hannah decided that it would be actually much better to escort him home. And so he didn't really live too far away from where it is that they were partying that night. And so then she decided to drive him home. Now, upon arriving at Cheslin's home, you know how you usually do it when you drop someone off. You chill outside maybe for 1 or 2 minutes, just have a quick chat, maybe talk about the night that you had or the plans for the next day. And so this is basically what was happening. They were basically just saying their goodbyes. And it is at this moment that 4 men had passed the cars who go by the names of Venom Witboy, Geraldo Parsons, Eben van Neerkerk, Nashville Julius. And I just really apologize for that and if I have mispronounced any of the names. Now, upon spotting the vehicle, one of the men decided that it would be a good idea to go back and, just rob the people in the car, maybe potentially take the car because it would be easy to break into and it would sell really, really quickly as well in the neighborhood. So then the men decided to go back, and upon arriving at the car, they then bumped into Hannah and Cheslin. It was at this point then that they were attacked with a screwdriver and a knife, and all their belongings were taken. Now, apparently it wasn't the plan to drive off with Cheslin and with Hannah, but while it was that they were robbing them, one of the men decided that this would actually even be a much better idea because then they could travel with them, max out their bank cards, etc. Now, because this wasn't part of the plan, Nashville Julius then decided to leave the men to drive off with Hannah and with Cheslin, and he decided to make his way back home. And now at 0340, which is 20 to 4 in the morning on the 27th of May 2017, this is the time that the ride from hell, as it was titled, begins. Cheslin was then shoved into the boot and Hannah was placed in the front seat. And from what it was that one of the men said is that Hannah was apparently very compliant. She listened. She wasn't really causing much of a scene or any of that. And so then they arrived at a petrol station where it is that one of the men had then walked out to go to the ATM and to max out their bank cards. Now Cheslin had then given one of the men the incorrect bank card, and from seeing on CCTV footage, the man looks very frustrated, when he realizes that Cheslin had given him the wrong pin code and Cheslin was to pay for this later in the evening. Now, according to CCTV footage, at 04:34 in the morning is the last time that it is that Hannah's car was spotted on the footage. Now, while the ride was going on, the men had promised Hannah, that they would let her go, that they weren't really going to do anything to her or to her friend. They were just driving around and maxing out the cards or whatever the case may be, but that she would make it home safely and that should be okay. Now, as it was that the ride to hell was continuing, they had reached a fault, and that is when they took Cheslin out of the boot. And as you can recall, Cheslin had given one of the men the incorrect pin, and this would be the time that he would pay for that. And now I just want to put out a trigger warning that the information that I'll be sharing from here on out is very sensitive, and so if you feel that maybe you can't continue on with the video, please just log out of this one and go check out my other videos. And if you can stomach what it is that we're about to talk about, please continue watching. And so then Cheslin was taken out of the boot and he was basically beaten up by some of the men. And so when they describe it, they basically just describe it as when he describes it, rather, it was described that they had put a brick, right? There was a brick, and then they put his head over the brick, and the men just started to smash his head with more and more bricks. And as you can imagine, Hannah was very hysterical at this point because of what it was that she was witnessing was happening to Cheslin. And so the whole purpose of this was to kill Cheslin and to basically eliminate him from what it was that they wanted to do as the night or as the morning continued. Now, after the attack on Cheslin, the men then drove to a different location, which was also located in a veld, and this is where they raped Hannah for at least an hour. They then got back into the car and drove to a different location. They then arrived at a small farm that had a stream, and this is where they continued to rape Hannah. They stabbed her in the neck and dropped a large rock on her head. Now, according to the autopsy that was done, Hannah Cornelius passed away immediately. Now, where it is that Cheslin was, he was actually able to regain consciousness. They had not managed to kill him, and this is when the alert was then put out, because Cheslin was then able to go to a nearby home and to let them know that they had been hijacked and that they were in a blue city Golf, and that the men had actually went away with his friend Hannah. Now, later on in that morning, 2 pump technicians that were actually working at the small farm where it is that Hannah had been killed recall seeing something that looked like a doll. Apparently it didn't look like a human being from far, so they thought maybe it was just a doll. But then the closer it was that they had walked towards this doll is when they figured out that it was actually a human being, and she had actually had her pants that were just pulled down just by her mid-thigh, and with the rock that was smashed over her head. They then decided to tell their supervisor, and the supervisor then contacted the police. Then after the attack and the murder of Hannah Cornelius, the men then decided to continue on this crime spree with Hannah's car, and around 8 in the morning they actually had chased down a woman down the road and they had robbed her of her belongings. Now, around 8:15 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there is no record of the men, and this is believed that maybe they were sleeping or they were resting around the time. And just shortly after that, they were spotted again on CCTV footage. They had kidnapped yet another woman, but fortunately with this woman, they didn't rape or kill her, but then they drove her to the petrol station still in Hannah's car to max out her bank card. The men were able to get 3,000 rand from the woman's account, and this is when they then dropped her off. And shortly after that, they dropped off Eben and they gave him 1,000 rand, to thank him for his help during the night that it is that they had. And so then Geraldo and Veron then decided to go to a township called Delft, where it is that they would be able to sell the city Golf. And so then in order to get to that township, you have to drive through Cheslin Marsh. And now, if you can recall, at this time the car had already been flagged. The cops were already looking for the car. And so then an undercover cop who goes by the name of Bulelani Siko had then spotted the car, and then this is when a high-speed chase had begun, and Bulelani then also decided to call for backup. The men then decided to drive into a farm's driveway. However, as they kept driving, there was actually like a security gate that stopped them from driving further, and so then they decided to run on foot, but they were captured and all men were then arrested. A few days later, Hannah was then laid to rest in a very, very beautiful ceremony, and basically the whole of Stellenbosch had just come to a standstill, to celebrate her life. And Cheslin as well, he tried to still continue on with school, but because of the trauma that he had faced from the attack, he thought it would be best to just drop out of school, and he had actually went deaf in one ear. And so Hannah's mom then started a foundation, a Hannah Cornelius Foundation, and this is where they had raised money to get Cheslin a hearing aid. Now in March 2018, a year after Hannah's death, unfortunately Hannah's mom was found dead at shallow waters in the Western Cape. And so then, apparently every morning, she would go to the water for a swim, but then that morning, unfortunately she didn't make it, and it was actually ruled out to be an accident. However, some people do believe that it was probably a suicide, because upon, having to deal, with Hannah's death, that was something that was very hectic for her. But yeah, Hannah's mom also passed away. Hannah's father says that his family died the day that it is that Hannah died. However, it was buried the same day that his wife was buried. And so he decided to then retire from his job as a magistrate to care full-time for his son that has autism. And Hannah's father just basically, during the court hearing, spoke about how it is that, Hannah's brother asks about her every day, asks when it is that she's coming home, as he's unable to grasp the reality of what their lives has become. And all 4 men were then charged with life imprisonment and are currently serving their life sentences. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this case. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to let me know what other cases you would like for me to follow up on or to cover. Please don't forget to like, to comment, to subscribe, and to share. Until next time, bye. That one was bad.